Mhm. Mr. Paul.
Yes, yes, David.
Okay, I wanted you to try your audio.
Okay.
Because
I don't know. Are you hearing some background noise?
no, that's clear enough.
Good, good.
You can also try maybe your slides on
Oh, moving the slides.
moving the
Okay, let
slides
me try.
on presentation mode.
So are we on slide 2?
That's slide 1, introduction, slide. Yeah, good.
Okay, good.
We're good to go. Now, let's wait for time.
Sawa, sawa.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, professionals in this lab. Majority of us being laboratory scientists, laboratory officers, and other medics who have joined us. We want to give maybe 5 more minutes so that we allow those who are in the process of joining before we start. So let's hold on for the next 5 minutes, and at exactly 5 minutes past 8, we'll start. Okay. Good evening once more. And now it's 5 minutes past 8 p.m. We want to welcome every one of us to this evening discussion, to this webinar, where we get to learn, interact, discuss, as well as hear from the experts in different fields. For this evening, we want to welcome one of us who is a medical laboratory technologist. He has a background in medical laboratory. However, as at the moment, he's a quality management systems specialist. He's one Mr. Paul Kahara. He's a common figure in the quality environment, in the laboratory environment. Paul is a lead consultant, for those who know him, and for purposes of introduction, is a lead consultant with Rankel Consultants Group, where he leads a group of professionals in designing and implementing training programs in different management systems, laboratory quality management systems, technical activities, as well as occupational health and safety. He also facilitates QMS, both in hospital and laboratory. He provides mentorship to laboratories seeking accreditation to ISO 15189. And in his firm, they also provide consultancy and mentorship to hospitals pursuing safe care, JCA, KQMH, and other health standards. And while he will be presenting, he'll also tell us maybe about the new standard of 7101 on healthcare organization systems. But for this evening, more specific, Mr. Paul is going to lead a discussion in the demystifying measurement uncertainty estimation for clinical laboratories. This is a very key topic in medical laboratory, especially for purposes of quantitative tests. And through leading in this discussion, he is going to demystify what exactly happens in measurement and uncertainty estimation. And we encourage you all to engage our presenter in Q&A session. And all your questions will be recorded as well as answered at the end of this session. So keep engaging in the chat box, keep engaging in sending your questions at the Q&A, and all those will be answered at the end of the session. So, Mr. Paul, if you are able to hear me clear, kindly proceed.
Thank you, David. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, I can proceed.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here this evening, once again to engage my colleagues on this important subject of measurement uncertainty. I want to greet you all. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, based on where you are catching us from. We are so delighted
Members, hold on a little.
I'm sorry, I may have dropped off.
Yes.
Sorry, let me try to share my screen again. Apologies. You're catching me from Litein in Kericho, almost 300 kilometers away from Nairobi. So I want to ask that you bear with me just in case I have some unstable network, but I try to move as quickly as possible before any interruption in terms of network. So thank you so much. I'll just go straight ahead with the topic of the day. When I was, sorry. What is happening here? Just a minute. Apologies. David, you can confirm. Can you see my cover slide?
Yes. We are able to see.
Okay. Has it moved now to the second
Yes.
slide?
The second slide
All
on
right.
introduction.
All right. Thank you. I want to appreciate over 300 of you who are listening to us this evening as we have a discussion of measurement uncertainty. I will be engaging you on first an introduction to what measurement uncertainty is. And then I will just highlight some of the requirements of measurement uncertainty as per ISO 15189. And then I will have a short discussion on a probable approach of how to estimate uncertainty. And then we'll have a Q&A session at the end of it all. So allow me just probably 20 to 25 minutes of your time, and then I'll be able to stop to answer any questions that you may have. When I was given, when I was asked to talk about this topic, I was wondering, really, will I be able to do it justice, within 1 hour? But said I will give it a try, and I'll be engaging you just briefly. I may not be able to share everything that I know about measurement uncertainty in just the time that we have, but I just give an introduction and overview that will probably be able to help us as we engage on other discussions in this area. So when you hear of measurement uncertainty, sometimes it might sound like a very strange term. It might sound like a new phenomenon, but I want to mention this evening as used in other fields. Most of you remember in 2024, when we had the American elections, just some days to the election, you'd hear different pollsters, coming up with a poll and telling us who is likely to win in that particular election. Same thing in 2022, when we had a two-horse race of a presidential election. And again, different pollsters would come over, tell us how many people they have interviewed who are likely to vote in that upcoming election and what they think in terms of who is likely to win that election. And then at the end of it, at the end of that report, they would always tell us that this opinion poll has a particular margin error. So those that want us to really trust their report will tell us, how their margin of error is too small or how their margin of error is too negligible, just to convince us that the study they did is the most credible. And so when we talk about measurement uncertainty, like I'm going to mention about it shortly, we're just talking about the margin of error in a particular, report that you have received. And so allow me to just get into it. Now, we are all in medical laboratories where our real job is performing measurements. And in most cases, it's about measurements regarding concentrations. All our results are in millimoles per liter, in milligrams per DL. We are doing measurements all the time. And I want to remind us again this evening that even in those high-end laboratories where we are working, where we have been well equipped with sophisticated technologies, where we have, the state-of-the-art kind of equipment, where our personnel are highly trained, and we have all that we need at our disposal to do the right thing. The truth is, there's no measurement that we are going to give out, to our patients, to our clinicians, that is perfectly exact, that is really exact value that would be expected for that particular test. And so every laboratory result carries some degree of doubt. The truth is, as you release, a result of blood sugar of 5 millimoles per liter, that result, we cannot confirm, with 100% certainty that result is correct. We cannot be able, because every result that we release out to our clinicians have got some degree of error. It has some margin of error. It has some, some level of doubt in it, because it is likely, if we were to repeat that particular sample, if you are to redo that blood glucose testing, you are likely to get a slightly different value from what we had reported earlier. And so that's what we are calling measurement uncertainty, that degree of doubt. So it is the quantified margin of doubt in any measurement result that we give, that when you're giving that 100 millimoles per micromoles per liter for that creatinine result, there's a possibility that if that test was to be repeated, you'd get a slightly different value from what you had reported earlier. And that is the case. But we should not go ahead telling our clinicians that we are not sure. We are not sure, how much of doubt we have in this result. Yes, we are telling them that take this result with some pinch of salt. We cannot attest 100% that it is the correct value. It could be having some margin of doubt. But the standard that you're going to see shortly requires that we actually estimate, that we evaluate, that we determine how much of uncertainty is contained in our test result through a particular method that we have used for testing. So the reason is the reason why every test result has got some margin of doubt is because there are so many factors that are into play as we try to do the testing. For instance, even if you are using an automated analyzer, which does automated pipetting, automated incubation, and that incubation is timed, that analyzer, has its own internal sophisticated mechanism of knowing what volume is required for the reagent and what volume is required for the sample, how long the sample and the reagent are supposed to be incubated, and it even has a an internal mechanism to measure the absorbance of that reaction complex to tell us exactly how much concentration our sample has. Now, all those factors that play for us to give out a result for our patients, we can't attest with 100% certainty that they are all stable, they are all okay. There could be an issue, with the incubation, so that instead of incubating for 10 minutes, our analyzer can actually do it for 11 minutes. It can actually do it for 10 minutes and a half. Now, any slight change or any slight deviation from how the analyzer is programmed, then we are likely to get a different value from what we would ordinarily get if that sample was to be repeated. And so, because of all these reasons, we can't stand, with our head high, say that all our results are without any level of doubt. Our results, the truth is, they have got some level of doubt. And what the standard will require us then to do is to estimate how much of this doubt exists in our test results. So allow me to just give an overview of what the standard says, and then later on I'll be able to share with you a probable way of estimating this uncertainty. When you look at clause 7.3.4 of the new standard for medical laboratories, it's almost getting old now, because I believe we are going to have to experience another review very soon. The measurement uncertainty, it requires that the measurement uncertainty for all quantity values be evaluated and maintained for its intended use. That is to mean, we should not just assume that, our equipment can't be perfect. Yes, it cannot be perfect, but we need to determine how imperfect our analyzer is when it is releasing, especially the quantity values. And then we make sure that these uncertainties associated with our equipment are maintained to the lowest level possible, that we don't have so much variations. In fact, the reason why we have to keep calibrating, we have to keep doing, servicing of our equipment, or to keep checking, how our IQA performance is, our IQC performance are, and why we keep training our personnel, is to make sure that even though it is clear that our equipment has got some level of uncertainty, we maintain those uncertainties to the lowest levels possible. And then these uncertainties then shall be compared against performance specifications and then, documented. And these performance specifications usually, in many laboratories, the total allowable errors, that whatever estimations we have for measurement uncertainty should never exceed what is allowed for that particular parameter based on the different studies that have been done. And mostly the standard requires that we keep referring to ISO 20914, which then gives us some details of measurement uncertainty. It's not a must that you have to go through that standard in details, but it gives us the guidance that we need to estimate measurement uncertainties. Now, these uncertainties ideally should be estimated immediately you have your new analyzer installed. But like we have said, our equipment may have a particular margin of doubt when it is new. When it gets older, those margins are likely to increase. Your equipment is likely to have a higher measurement uncertainty with age. And that is why the standard in Part B requires that we evaluate these measurement uncertainties on a regular basis, just to ensure that they are still at their minimum levels as they were when the equipment was still new, when the equipment was still, performing optimally. Now, for examinations where evaluation of MU is not possible, the standard requires that we have an exclusion criteria, of why we are not able to estimate uncertainty, and then we document it so that on the day of audit, then someone can be able to justify why you haven't estimated. But like you're going to see, it is actually easier for you to estimate uncertainty than trying to look for rationale of not doing it. because it is not that complicated. And so the rationale could always be, these are qualitative tests. For qualitative tests, you may not have to estimate uncertainty, because the standard in Part A requires that we estimate uncertainty for quantitative kind of examinations. Part D of 7.3.4 requires that measurement uncertainty information be made available to laboratory users on request. Now, at this point, the standard is requiring us to, only report mu values when our users request for them. You never know. Probably in the next version of this standard, we might be required to report mu values anytime we give out a patient result. Because the clinician want to know, if you're reporting a blood sugar of 7, a fasting blood sugar of 7, and probably the reference range for that particular laboratory is that anything above 7.2 for a fasting blood sugar is considered a pre-diabetic. Then the clinician would want to know, is it that my patient is approaching the pre-diabetic range? Or is it that this equipment probably is giving me this value because of its the uncertainties associated with its testing methodologies? And so in the near future, it is likely that any particular result we are releasing to the clinicians, we might be required to report it, alongside measurement uncertainty values, just like it happens for EQA providers. For most of us who are participating in an EQA program, you are aware that no EQA provider will give you a mean value for a particular peer of analyzers without also indicating what is the standard uncertainty of that particular mean value. So that's already happening with EQA providers. It's also happening with calibration service providers. It might also happen in the very near future for us as laboratory, as medical laboratories. Otherwise, for now, what you can have is to share these estimations, in form of an Excel. It can be shared on email. It can be displayed even in your notice board, just to convince the people who consume your reports that this is the margin of error that is associated with the results that you release. Now, this standard already anticipates that whenever we try to share information about measurement uncertainties, our users are likely to have a lot of inquiries and concerns, because all along, probably they have believed that your equipment is perfect, that whatever results you release to them have got no issues at all. But then you're here telling them that this result I'm releasing to you has got some margin of doubt, has got some measurement of uncertainty of 5%. And so they're likely to ask you, but why? I thought we are using the, total laboratory automation. I thought we are using the best equipment in the region. How come we are still having this kind of uncertainties? So when the users ask you about this measurement uncertainty, the standard already gives us a possible answer that we can provide, that we mention to our users that these uncertainties could be due to so many reasons, including biological variation. For instance, most of us, you have done complete blood counts, and you know how variable results for platelets can be. You run a sample now, you get 50. Or you run a sample now, you get 130. You repeat the same sample immediately, and you get it, above 150. And at one point you're wondering, does this patient have an issue with platelet results, or is it my equipment that has an issue? But it is known that platelets has got that kind of variability. It can vary up to 25% based on the total allowable error. And so it is likely that you can have that kind of high uncertainties when you estimate it for platelets, because it is known biologically to vary like that. So the standard already tells us what to tell our users to, what to explain to our users whenever we have that kind of report. Now, part F, if the qualitative results of an examination relies on a test which produces quantitative output data, then the standard requires that we estimate the output quantity. That means if you are running HIV, hepatitis B, syphilis using an ELISA method or chemiluminescent method, which requires that, or which undergoes some, which gives some cutoff values for you to determine whether it is positive or negative, the standard requires that we estimate the uncertainty of those quantitative cutoff values, just like we do for the other quantitative results. So these are new requirements now compared to what we were using in the 2012 version, because it was not mentioned that you can do qualitative test measurement uncertainty. Now that requirement is similar to part G, where we are told that for examinations with qualitative results, MU in the intermediate measurement steps, which produce quantitative data, should also be considered, for estimation. Then finally, the standard requires in 7.3.4 that MU should be taken into consideration when you're performing verification or validation of an equipment or a test method. And so anytime we have a new equipment which needs to be verified, now some of the parameters we need to take into consideration are measurement uncertainty. And it is good that you do it at the beginning when the equipment is still new, so that you can use those estimates to monitor how your equipment is doing over time. It may actually be a reason for you to dispose of an equipment, after 7 years, because you can do a comparison always of how it was performing when it was still new in terms of the margin errors, and how it is doing now, 7 years after using this particular equipment. And so that is what the standard requires that we do for measurement uncertainty. Now, let me take just a few minutes to take you through a probable approach of how to estimate. There could be different approaches as given by different ISO standards, but let me show you what I have seen working, and probably we can have a deliberation at the end of it, at the end of this. Now, first, it's good to say there are two types of uncertainties, or two classifications of uncertainties. One is type A, the other one is type B. And simply put, type A is that uncertainty of a method due to its imprecision. Because like we have mentioned, even the high end, the most of its sophisticated analyzers, they have got some imprecision. There's a way in which if you are to subject that particular equipment with the same sample repeatedly, it is not likely that you'll be able to report the same value over time. And so when you carry out a repeatability experiment, when you carry out a reproducibility experiment or long-term precision experiment, you are likely to find out that your equipment is not able to give you the exact same result over time, even if that sample, has not been adulterated in any way. Now, type B uncertainty, simply put again, this may not be, the definitive description of what it is. This is the uncertainty due to inaccuracy of a test method. Because again, any test method you know about, if my value is 100, from as an assigned value or from an EQA, and you subject that particular sample on my analyzer, it is likely that my analyzer may not be able to give me exactly 100. It is likely to give me 99.5 or 105, because my equipment has got some inaccuracy in its that is inherent. Uncertainty is one that we are saying is out of random uncertainty. You can experiment data. While a type B, in a medical laboratory where we're operating, we can either use a method comparability result, we can use an EQA report, we can use assigned values that have been gotten from another laboratory that is confirmed, to have a standard analyzer and all that. And so, simply put, you can say type A uncertainty involves a statistical analysis of repeated measurements to quantify the uncertainty. But then type B relies on non-statistical methods or other external information, like what we get from EQA providers to tell us, how well our equipment is doing. If you wanted to estimate type A, and I hope we are still together, I want to avoid the complicated formulas we see in different ISO standards, because I want to bring it home in a way that you can all be able to understand while still adhering to the same formulas. And so I want to believe the formulas I have put in front of you are not so difficult, a bit easy for us to understand. And so if you're using a phone, you can try probably to use it in a landscape mode so that you're able to see word for word in these formulas that I want to present to you. So many laboratories in the past were only estimating type A and failing to recognize that their testing methods could also be having, type B kind of uncertainties. Now, type A is uncertainty due to imprecision, or that is able to help us pick up the random errors. And there are two ways to estimate it. So I want to avoid a lot of theories because we just only have a few minutes. And so I just want to go straight away to how you can quickly estimate it in your laboratory. So you can either calculate a standard uncertainty given by this formula, where you take your standard deviation. So if you have a data set, accuracy of 1 month or 20 days IQC data, where you have been running the same level 1 lot number from day 1 of the month until the 30th day of the month, you can go ahead and calculate the standard deviation between those values, and then divide by the square root of how many values you have accumulated in your experiment. So if you used 20, a data set of 20, and probably your standard deviation is 2, then you are going to take 2 divided by 20, square root of 20. That is quickly how you can calculate type A uncertainty. Now, the other way to calculate it is by calculating the coefficient of variation. Coefficient of variation. And how you do your coefficient of variation, or the CV as we commonly call it, is by taking your standard deviation divided by the mean of your data set. So I'm sorry I didn't indicate some of these data sets for illustration, but it's easy. What we are saying is you are doing the same lot number of normal QC from day 1 to day 30 of the month. And so for this particular QC, your HB values were, 12.1, 12, 13. Those are the values you are getting from the first day to the 30th day of the month. So go ahead and calculate the standard deviation and the mean of those values. Then take your standard deviation, divided by the mean multiplied by 100%. That is what you are going to get as the coefficient of variation. And that can be equated to type A uncertainty. Now, you'll wonder why I have told you about the two. Now, for laboratories that only use type A, you can use the first formula. Actually, this is the same formula that many EQ providers use to estimate the standard uncertainty of the assigned mean. But since you still want to combine your type A with type B, it is preferred that you use the CV because the CV is already in percentage. And you want to combine the same that type A uncertainty with type B, which is also supposed to be calculated in percentage. So that is how you calculate type A. Now type B, like we said, this is the uncertainty due to inaccuracy of a method, or the uncertainty due to that, captures the systematic errors of an equipment. And so what you need to do here is to calculate the percentage bias between your result and what is expected. So what I mean here is, if you are using an EQA report, like we said, type B, you get this data from external sources. So you get a comparison of whatever your equipment is doing using the external sources. So you're going to take your result. Let's say you're getting 100 for crate 9. Subtract whatever the EQA provider is giving you. Probably the EQA provider tells you it is 110 for that particular sample. Divide by 110. So divide whatever value you get after subtracting by, the assigned value, which is 110. Then multiply by 100%. You're going to end up with percentage bias. And that is only for one sample. Now, if you have been participating in in an annual EQA scheme, ideally you want to use more than one cycle's data to determine how biased your equipment is. And so you're going to take the average of all your results, in cycle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe you're doing a monthly EQA cycle. And in cycle A, where the sample was supposed to be 10, you gave a result like 8. In February, where the EQA provider was telling you the sample has a concentration of 1,000, you gave 900. Now, go ahead and look at the annual data, or all the samples that you have. Look at all the data that you have. Calculate the average for all your results. Calculate the average for all the results given by the EQA provider. Then take your average, subtract the average given by the provider, then divide by the average given by the provider, multiplied by 100%. That will be the average bias for your equipment in that period that you are doing that study. Now, that's just simply, how to calculate type A and type B. Let me now take you through a 5-step guide of exactly how to estimate this uncertainty from the beginning to the end. And I'm really trying, to summarize this so that I am able to fit within the time that we have. So if you haven't been following me, I hope I'll be able to make sense now. Let me try. So it's a 5-step process. So number 1, go ahead and calculate the CV from at least 20 data sets of your precision experiments. Or you can take your 1-month QC data. And like we have said, you're going to take your standard deviation from that data, divided by the mean, and then multiply that by 100%. That will be the percentage CV. And that percentage CV is what we are equating to the uncertainty due to, imprecision of your method, or type A uncertainty. Then number 2, calculate the measurement bias using the data given in your EQA reports or such external values that you could even get from another referral lab. And like we have said, since you want to use a data set probably of 1 year, or you want to use different values to say how well your equipment is doing in terms of bias, I want to use the second option. You know, the first option is where you're only doing a bias for one sample. But like I was explained to you, we want to take a bias from the 15, 20 samples that you have been running on EQA for the past few months, because we want to, you know, to check how well our equipment is doing in comparison to our EQA reports, our EQA values. So you're going to take the average that of results that you are getting. You subtract the average of the, you know, the EQA provider divided by the average multiplied by 100%. That will be bias percentage. Then number 3, you want to combine the two, because like we have said, every equipment has got some imprecision. It also has some inaccuracy. Some of these factors are inherent. Others are due to external factors, which sometimes we cannot be able to control. You know, temperatures, personnel issues, transportation of the reagents, you know, from the manufacturer all the way to our country. There are so many issues. And so we want to make sure that we combine as much factors as possible to be able to estimate with certainty how much of uncertainty our testing method is. So how do you combine? Now remember, there's a possibility that your bias could be actually have a negative sign. And so we are told, if you want to combine two values, one that has a negative, the other one that has a positive, because like we are saying, let me take you back. It is likely that your average for the lab was probably 500. And the average from the EQA provider is 550. And so when you do this percentage bias, you're going to end up with a negative bias, which means that all your values are generally lower than what the EQA provider or that referral laboratory is giving you. And so if you want to combine these two values, then you have to square them so that you're able to lose that negative sign. Because if you try to, you know, add a value that has positive sign with another one that has a negative sign, you are going then to distort the rules of mathematics. And so you square each of those uncertainties. So you square your bias, you square your imprecision, I mean your CV, so that you can lose the negative sign. Then you go ahead and add them. And like it is when you are doing combination of, you know, these variances, you do a square root to get back to where you were. So what you're going to end up with is a combined uncertainty. But then this combined uncertainty may not have incorporated everything in terms of all the sources of uncertainty in your method. And so different standards will always mention that you need to multiply your combined uncertainty by a coverage factor of about 1.95. And so many laboratories, instead of multiplying it by 1.95, they just multiply simply by 2, so that you're able to incorporate all other sources of uncertainty besides imprecision and inaccuracy, which may occur so randomly during your testing process. And then, so what you're going to end up with is what we call the expanded uncertainty. And this expanded uncertainty is what now we will be using, you know, to tell our clinicians how well our equipment is doing, how well our equipment is giving its values. So how do you confirm whether your expanded uncertainty is okay or not? Your uncertainty, which is now expanded, if you're going to accept it, then should be lower than the total allowable error for the specific analyte that you are studying. I wish I was able to give a further explanation of the total allowable errors, but I want to give you a homework also. Go and probably learn more about total allowable errors for the different tests. Of course, every test has been confirmed, has been studied, and it has been confirmed, how far it can go when you're running tests in that with that for that parameter. And so ideally, what we should be reporting is the expanded uncertainty, which then incorporates both the imprecision, the inaccuracy, and other factors that may contribute to uncertainty of your method. And so that is it. That is where I want to stop it. So I have stopped it almost abruptly. And these are the references that I used. There's ISO 20914, which is on the practical guidance for the estimation of measurement uncertainty. It's an ISO standard. Of course, some requirements, we got them from ISO 15189 and also the CLSI guidelines, especially the document of 2014. So that is it. I don't know, maybe I took a lot of time. I want to give it back to David to see if you have any questions.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Paul, for that explanation. I know measurement uncertainty is a way whole topic that is in other platforms, is being taught or discussed in a whole week. However, you've done a very good summary and into key points for the short period that we've had. So thank you for that. Let's take some few questions that members have raised. There's one, Mr. Care Justice is asking, in a scenario that you have failed EQA, that is HB, RBC, can you still use the same data to calculate measurement and uncertainty? Paul?
Okay. Thank you, David. Do I answer straight away or do I wait for one more?
I can read maybe to another one. Maybe you can see which ones can be combined. One is asking, Mr. Duke is asking, when calculating your MU for both type A and B, do you do for each single analyte for panel test? That's, for instance, renal profile. Do you do for each of the parameters? Maybe you can combine the two.
Okay. Right. Thank you. I think I can start with Duke. Uncertainty is for every single parameter. So every single parameter should be estimated independently. It is likely that your equipment is doing so well with potassium, but not so well with sodium. So you need to establish uncertainty of each of the parameters. On the first question, I think I didn't get exactly who it was. If you are, I think he mentioned if the values, would you say that again, David? Sorry.
He's saying in a scenario that you have a failed EQA for some of the parameters, he was using HB and RBC as a scenario. Can you still use the same data to calculate MU?
I think the first thing you need to do is to look at the values also visually before you subject them to any tool that will help you calculate the measurement uncertainty. So depending on how far the failure is, you can decide not to use. For instance, if the errors were out of unit error, and with units you're going to fail properly, then I would encourage that you don't use such values. But if the failure is something that is a bit systematic, I will encourage you to put that data in your, so that you can tell, generally speaking, when my equipment is doing so well and when it is failing, on average, how is it in terms of measurement uncertainty? So I will first, go visual, remove all failures that are due to, human issues, unit conversion and such, and only incorporate issues that are systematic that I may want to use to test the capability of my equipment to release credible results.
Okay. There are also so many compliments on the chat box. So many of our colleagues, our seniors, some what I see, and our members who are complimenting the nature of your presentation, the type of topic that we discussed this evening. So we can tackle another one. Maybe I can combine two. One is asking, Mr. Paul, just an inquiry about what is the frequency of MU review, and maybe you can combine with Mr. Dennis is asking for semi-quantitative tests. How do you estimate measurement uncertainty, given that the EQA data lacks bias values? Maybe you can answer the two.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you. Very interesting questions. So on the first one, on the frequency, the standard is a bit silent on, how often you should do it. So that will be dependent on your own procedures. But I would encourage that you do it immediately the equipment is installed, as you do the other verification experiments. And then you can also decide to be doing it annually at the beginning, and then or probably biannually at the beginning, that is every 2 years. But as the equipment, starts showing like it is not performing so well, you can increase the frequency to even twice in a year. Remember, for this estimation, you don't require to buy anything else. If you already participated in IQC programs and EQA programs, you just need to use that data, to comment generally about the performance of your analyzer. So at the beginning, I would suggest every 2 years. As the equipment gets older with time, you can reduce the frequency you can increase the frequency to probably once a year and also have an year. Then for semi-quantitative, I agree with the participant. I can't remember his or her name. That the challenge we have is with quantitative, semi-quantitative, is that the information we should get for type B may not be readily availed by the EQA providers. And that is why we are having this discussion, so that just in case we have some of us who are participating in production and distribution of EQA materials, because I know for sure that we have these values. Why can't we consider, sharing these values with our participants? Because besides just knowing whether they are passing or failing, they want to use this data for estimation of their uncertainty. And so to the participant, I would suggest that we keep inquiring with our EQ providers, and that data can always be provided.
Okay. I think he was called Dennis Baraza, and he proceeds to ask another one. On the recent CLIA 2024, they have tightened the total allowable errors for numerous analytes, therefore resulting to sigma shift. Therefore, high-performing analytes may fall into marginal or unacceptable categories. So what is your advice on this? And maybe, as you mentioned on that, you can also answer how you combine MU and sigma metrics.
Okay, thank you. It is true, the clear limits, when you look at the tables, the values are now more stringent, which means then we have to really ensure that our equipments are in good status by the time we are subjecting them to some of these experiments. Because, we are in a scientific world. We can't continue using the old total allowable errors limits when there are newer ones. Because being a scientific field, we go with the most recent study. And so it is a challenge. I want to say it's a challenge, but it is easy to overcome. It is just telling us now to be more vigilant, on the performance of our equipment, all the factors that can lead us to releasing unacceptable total allowable errors. So I may not have a direct answer of, what do we do, but I just want to ask that we be more vigilant to make sure that these uncertainties are minimized to as much as possible to be able to fall within the category given by the clear units. So how do we combine sigma metrics and measurement uncertainty? I think I may not have a quick answer to that, but probably what we can do, David and the Akamuso team, probably we can have another session to go deeper now into how do we apply measurement uncertainty? How do we combine it with other good tools that we use to manage the EQA results? I mean, our testing methods. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. It's so clear that we do not have much or enough time to discuss this and even go into deeper details. And that has also been highlighted by our members in both questions, Q&A, as well as the chat box. But we can try answer one or two before time elapses. Someone else asks how we determine mu in POCTs, now that POCT is a very big mention in our standard 15189.
Sorry, would you say that again, David?
Yeah, the member is asking, how do you determine measurement uncertainty for POCTs?
All right, thank you. So by POCT, I believe you mean, that the testing methods that are done next to the patient, the glucometers, the blood gas, and all that.
Yep.
Now, because they are quantitative in nature, it means that you're able to get the precision. I mean, you're able to do repeatability experiments, to be able to calculate the CV. You're able to, get samples from another superior method and run on them and get the percentage bias. So there's no magic, there's no difference. The same thing we do for the other equipments, we are going to do it for POCT as well.
Okay.
Just like I've explained before. Yeah.
True. There's another one on, you mentioned on random and systematic errors that may occur, and one is asking on maybe what are some of these random and systematic errors, and maybe how we can avoid such pitfalls.
Okay. So some of these random errors, okay, it will depend on, on the method that we are using. It will depend on, the users of these particular methods. I may not straight away say that these are all the random errors that are likely to occur in your testing method. But just to give an example, random errors could be, based on the technique that we are using. For instance, pipetting. On one instance, you get a volume so well. In another instance, you're not able to get, the 5 mLs, the 1,000 microliters so well because of the technique. The systematic errors, like we know them, these are recurrent issues. They could be based on the calibration problems that we have in our equipment. So I may not say exactly which ones, but I would suggest that we all do our evaluation of our testing methods to get exactly which are these errors.
Thank you. There are a lot of questions. Some I will forward to you, and maybe once they are answered, we will share in our WhatsApp group so that members get to maybe get answers. We'll also share your contact is as well displayed on the screen. Those who may want to reach direct can reach. And maybe if you could tackle this one last one,
Okay.
Mr. Paul, regarding the top-down approach, what is recommended way to incorporate the bias component into combined uncertainty calculation?
Okay, that is it by Penelope Museke?
Yes.
Yeah, what is the recommended way to incorporate that bias component into the combined uncertainty calculations? I think I would go with the same approach, you know, where you determine the coefficient of variation for the type A. You get your percentage bias, you square each of them, add them, and then square root. I would go with the same approach, whether it is a top-down or even the bottom-up approach as given by the GUM.
Okay. Thank you. And now maybe I can check through the chat box. We have a lot of compliments, good presentation. It may have been brief, but very informative. Someone says, wonderful presentation, Mr. Paul, keep it up, very educative. Despite the formulas, we are still tuned in. Very nice presentation, good presentation. Thank you, very informative, and all sorts of compliments. So, Mr. Paul Kahara, thank you so much. Maybe you can prepare to give us your closing remarks. And but before you come in with your closing remark, I want to also recognize that within ourselves, we have our president of EKMLSO. He may want to speak a word to us before we wind up. Mr. Safari, kindly unmute and say a word.
Thank you so much. Can you really confirm that I'm audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Thank you so much. First of all, I want to take this opportunity on behalf of Akamulso to appreciate all the big numbers that are in attendance of this webinar. It clearly shows that this topic had great interest within the professionals, and I'm very happy that our facilitator, presenter, Mr. Paul Kahara has tried his level best to give this topic the justice it deserves. We know it was an executive summary that he was giving because, like the way our moderator has said, it's a topic that usually takes a whole week to train. Personally, I was trained in it by CLSI, and I think if I'm to go to class again, I can really sharpen more skills. But Mr. Kahara has really tried to sharpen and remind me part of the skills. Majority of us actually are fond of doing a certainty of measurement as part of a requirement for ISO certification. As Paul has clearly elucidated in his presentation, it should be a way of trying to prove that your results are correct. It's a way of defending your results. So even if you are not under ISO certification, or you are not doing steps towards accreditation, you can, for every equipment that you procure in your facility or is procured in your facility, as Mr. Kahara has said, it comes out very well on a new equipment. And therefore, I do not see why, after getting this knowledge, you should not be practicing this. Whenever a new equipment is purchased in your facility, kindly do uncertainty of measurement. When the clinicians come asking and doubting your results, you have your figures to give. And I think that will go a long way in ensuring that our professionalism is really trusted. Thank you so much, Paul. And I believe that depending on the other questions that will be forwarded to you, you may be able to see whether there is need from the professionals to be empowered more out of what you have presented. Otherwise, I appreciate all of you, and we are looking forward to the next webinar to share more knowledge. Otherwise, thank you so much, and back to you, moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Safari. Maybe Mr. Kara, you can give your closing remark.
Right. Asante sana. Thank you, David. Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Safari, for always joining us in these sessions besides your busy schedules. I just want to appreciate Akamuso for an opportunity to always share with the colleagues. It gives me a lot of joy that some of these conversations we do here has a lot of impact, on the ground. And so I also want to appreciate the participants in your big numbers for joining in this session. Most of you are, contacting me throughout the day. Share with us the link so that we can share with others. And I think with that kind of interest, then it shows that we really want to do the right thing. So get one or two things that we have learned from this session, see how we can go ahead and implement it. I want to believe it will not be just any other webinar, where we just come, listen passively and go. See what we can implement in our different facilities where we work. Now, I can see so many questions. And like I said, it was just an executive summary, just an overview. And so I can see questions from Lisema, from Frederick Mutune, and many others. And because I believe I have the contacts for all of them, please allow me to engage you personally on those issues. And I believe I'll be able to do justice to the concerns that you have. Otherwise, I want to wish you well. Thank you so much for listening to us, even at this time of the day, of the night. We want to believe that it is going to impact our patients from all over the country and all over Africa. We are so happy that many are joining us also from out of our borders, and we are glad that this gospel that Akamuso have begun is spreading across the continent. So thank you so much. I look forward for another opportunity later on, maybe to expound further on this and other areas.
Thank you, Mr. Kaara. Clearly, we need another session, maybe to go further into this, as well as discuss more. So to our members, those who've joined from different localities, from different professions, not only it's not limited to maybe laboratory or medics that are able to join. Thank you for having your time and attending the session, as well as engaging our presenter and listening. It was an honor to always have you, Mr. Kaara, in the room to share with us such knowledge. Maybe one or two reminders to ourselves. As part of our mandate as SECMLSO, we give educative presentations. We also give knowledge as well as share to all laboratory professionals. It's part of our mandate. However, for the CPD, as well clarified, CPD will only be awarded to members, subscribed members of the association. And while registering for these webinars, kindly make sure you input well your ID numbers clearly, as well as your registration numbers, starting with the alphabet A or B, followed by a 0, and then the number proceeds. So we look forward to engaging you more, and it's unfortunate that some of our members today were closed out because of the limited slots that we had. We are here to engage us more, and we hope next time, same time next week, when we announce for our next presenter, you are able to join in on time so that you do not miss out. We are always meeting on every Tuesday at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. So keep looking on our social media website, as well as our WhatsApp group, where all such information will be shared. We will collect all these questions that have been shared in the Q&A as well as in the chat box. Try share with our presenter, and those that can be shared back with the clarifications and answers will be done through our WhatsApp group. So until we meet again next time, I've been your moderator, Kenani David. So you have yourself a nice evening.
Thank you and good night.